One of the people that I admire greatly in terms of advocacy is Martin Luther King. And there's a great documentary, if people haven't seen it, called King in the Wilderness. And it's pretty sad, but it's a lot, the stuff I didn't know. It's about the last 2 years of Martin Luther King's life, where, he almost went into depression because, did you know that he was one of the most hated men in America before he was assassinated? And the reason he was hated, Brian, was because he was one of the few people to come out and oppose the Vietnam War as a public figure. And he was accused of treason on the front page of newspapers. And some of his friends started turning on him, his closest friends. Does this sound familiar? Right? Because he was going against the narrative, and he almost went into depression. And there's a line that I remember watching this documentary, and I've seen it several times, and it'll bring you to tears, but one of his closest friends said, Martin's always said this: if you can't drive, you run. If you can't run, you walk. If you can't walk, you crawl. Just keep moving forward. And I just thought, you know what, I've got to this stage now, I'm going to do everything I can. Let me try and go international. And I managed to get the story in the Times of India as a positive story, and in Spanish newspapers. And then the next thing, and GB News. And, fine, not mainstream news, fine. Dan Wootton, one of their most popular broadcasters, he interviewed me on their show that evening when the paper was released. And I remember, I never forget this, just as I left the studio, and I think the paper had come out, and I think I'd mentioned I was going on GB News. The first person to call me when I left the studio of GB News, I got a missed call. I didn't know it was an American number, so I called it back. Robert Kennedy Jr. And he said to me, Aseem, I just want to say, he said Dr. Malhotra, he's a very polite guy. He said, Dr. Malhotra, he said, I just want to congratulate you on your paper and thank you for your courage. And I was overwhelmed because, I've admired and respected him as a person, for a very long time. Yeah. And it was really encouraging. I just said, no, I said, Robert, thank you for all your work. And then we connected, of course, and, became friends. But, then I was on Highwire, Del Bigtree, and I went over to the States, and, things evolved, and Tucker was interviewing me for Fox and Fox News. So there was an international stuff, but there was still this disappointment that it hadn't broken the mainstream in the UK. But I remember the triangle that moved the mountain. It needed political engagement, and Sir Christopher Chope, who's a Conservative MP who'd been supporting people with vaccine injuries and set up an all-party parliamentary group for people with vaccine injuries. He invited me to give a talk in Parliament, and hoped to get many MPs there, because I knew that the evidence that was presented, if people were willing to listen, they would realize there's a problem. And of course, getting political engagement was an ideal scenario. So I went to give this talk there. And because it was 15 minutes before I was supposed to give the talk, Liz Truss resigned. So there was chaos in Parliament, and many MPs that were supposed to come didn't come. So there was maybe 3 or 4 there, but one of them was Andrew Bridgen. And I didn't know Andrew at that point, Conservative MP. You know Andrew Bridgen? No. Yes, okay. So Andrew Bridgen, Conservative MP, and at the end of my talk, I remember him looking at me and giving me the thumbs up. And it was not short after that, I think he was a bit shocked. He called me up and said, Aseem, I've got an opportunity to give a speech in Parliament to support what you're saying about suspending the vaccine. I thought, wow, that's huge. Can you help me write the speech? Can you give me the right information on this? So I said, absolutely. So I think it was early December, I go and he invites me to actually witness this thing. And he gives a speech, but a lot of people left because they knew what was coming. But it went viral. I think it got 6 million views on social media, right? Which is great. That was definitely a step forward, certainly in terms of getting this, keeping this campaign going. And then I think I come back from, I had a little vacation. I was in the States for a while giving talks with Peter McCullough. And it was January the 14th, I think. I get a phone call from a BBC journalist. It was BBC News Channel. and they wanted me to talk about statins because Chris Whitty and NICE in the preceding week or two had basically suggested more people should take statin drugs. There'd been discussions about excess deaths that were unexplained. And I had this discussion with the producer. I said, sure, I'd love to talk about it. And, and she was happy. I said, what do you think, Dr. Malhotra? I said, well, we should be pushing lifestyle, not statins. I think that's better for low-risk people. She said, this sounds like a great discussion point. And then, Brian, I think the rest you know, but it was all very sudden and very quick. And I remember thinking when I was in my apartment and getting my iPhone stand ready and setting stuff up and getting ready to go on air. And I just thought, this is my V for Vendetta moment. As in, that movie V for Vendetta where the guy takes over the, TV channels to tell the country that their government is corrupt and misleading them. And I did it in a polite way, and I said, well, there's an issue of excess deaths here, and the elephant in the room is we're not discussing the clear, from the highest quality level of evidence, serious adverse event rates of these COVID vaccines, and I think this is playing a role. And there was backlash, obviously, from that, but on Twitter, I think it's at 24.3 million views, which is great. So we got, that helped at least disseminate that conversation or keep that going, and of course that got picked up by so many other people, Russell Brand and etc. But then the backlash happened within 24 hours.
Right.
Guardian, their top line was something, and it was the most read article on their website that day, was BBC criticised for allowing cardiologists to hijack, interview with false COVID jab claim. And then the Times did something which was a picture of me and Andrew Bridgen, the MP that spoke in Parliament. And the headline was something along the lines of Andrew Bridgen, the MP who was groomed by gangs of anti-vaxxers.
That's a conservative paper and a more liberal paper.
Yes, but what was really interesting is the comment section on The Guardian and The Times was largely supporting us. So for me, that showed that there was a clear disconnect. There's been so much pickup, I think, through social media and other channels that has disseminated out to the public that I think a large proportion of the public now know what's going on, know there's a problem. So for me, I saw that as a sign of victory. It was a hatchet. Both of the articles were hatchet jobs.
Why did they write those?
Because I think this is ultimately the tentacles of Big Pharma, right? The Guardian has taken millions from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Well, that's another, by the way, influencer here. Yeah. Second largest funder to WHO. Heavily invested in stocks in pharmaceutical industry, McDonald's and Coca-Cola. Part of why we also weren't combating this obesity problem when we had the opportunity to do stuff during the pandemic is because of the influence of these foundations and big food as well, right? These big corporations, they want people to eat more junk food, right? That's how they make their money, as opposed to doing the opposite, which would improve people's, immunity. So I think that's what happened. But actually, one of the lessons in public health advocacy is as soon as your work threatens an industry or an ideological cabal, you will be attacked, sometimes unrelentingly and viciously, right? And that's also related to somebody else that I admire and follow, is Mahatma Gandhi. In his mission to rid India from British colonialism, one of the things he said was, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. So having all that insight and understanding, when that happened, there were people calling me up who were very upset, much more upset than me, that this was being said about me. Or, even a friend of mine called me up and she said, Aseem, they're saying you're not even a cardiologist. But it's laughable, Brian. Right. I find it funny, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, you do, but so many people believe that, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, I had the last word in that Guardian article. And what was really interesting on the back of that, have you heard of Double Down News?
No.
So Double Down News are probably the most influential alternative media platform for the left. Okay. Right? They're almost like Jimmy Dore in the US in some ways, but they do a lot of really good stuff. And their editor called me, and I was like, I like this. I think they do a lot of great stuff. They put stuff out. And they have people like Jeremy Corbyn, like regularly, they support him. And I have a lot of admiration for that man, by the way. That's another topic. But they called me and they said, listen, we're shocked by the way that you've been treated by The Guardian, and you've lost your father, and we loved the way that you responded. I said, this isn't about left or right. This is about right and wrong, and there are clear harms here, and we need to have a discussion about this. So they appreciated the comment that I put in The Guardian, and they said, we'd love to interview you for it, and to talk about all this and break down the data on the vaccines. So they did, and they put it out, and I'm sure they got some backlash from a lot of their woke lefties, or people who are indoctrinated, but that was, for me, that was really good.
Isn't it wild how the left has now gone to do the things that the right used to do?
Yes. Yeah. I was trying to get my head around this, because the people that I've become more friendly with, or certainly have been most supportive of me in this mission, are people who are actually right of center. And I myself, and one of these is, I was very influenced by my father. My father was a, proper card-carrying Labour supporter. He was the National Doctor of the Year for the Labour Party, right? And, considered one of the most prolific campaigners for the NHS over the last several decades, if not the most prolific doctor to support its values. So, and the way I've tried to figure this out is, I think, from an ideological perspective. The vaccine was sold to us as you're doing something for the community, it's not for yourself. You're protecting others by taking the vaccine, which is very left thinking, right? Community first, right? The right side of thinking is very much about individuals, personal responsibility, freedom of choice. But that was impacted by the way that a lot of these vaccines, the policies are, right, about mandates, and you have to have it. So I think a certain section of the right were like, hold on, this is too much. This doesn't fit with our belief system. And that's why they were the ones to counteract. And I think that superseded the right's affiliation and love for the corporations and industry. The left have not realized that the people they normally have been fighting against, the excesses and manipulations of industry, they haven't realized that actually they are the ones that are controlling this narrative. They have believed that actually, like traditional vaccines, safe and effective, we're doing stuff for the community. Anyone countering this narrative is, a conspiracy theorist or has some far-right views or whatever else. That's how they've managed to polarize the left and right on this issue. Through that.
Fascinating to watch it happen. So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public, and he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy. Hey, it's Brian Rose, founder of the DeFi Academy. I've told you my 4-week crypto bootcamp is amazing, but don't take my word for it. This is what my students are saying.
The DeFi Academy was an amazing experience for me. It took me totally out of my comfort zone.
In this course, I was challenged, I was held accountable, and pushed to do things that honestly weren't always easy.
It's been phenomenal, and I can't believe we're already up on our 4 weeks. It has flown by.
Going through this DeFi accelerator by far was one of the best courses I've taken.
You do this course, you really get into the nitty-gritty of the activities that will make you comfortable with decentralized finance.
Thank you so much to Brian and everyone at London Real and the DeFi Academy for even putting together an amazing course like this.
Anybody else that wants to do it, please sign up. It is well worth the money.